Hey guys, it's Mike Urban. We are back for another episode. I'm sitting here with none other than Brian Shortsleeve. We're going to talk a lot about what is happening in Massachusetts today. So Brian, I'm happy to have you on again.
It's great to be back. My second stop on the podcast.
Second run. That's it. So let's get the elephant out of the room. I want to talk a little bit about what happened on Memorial Drive. Obviously, we had some guy, Tyler Brown. He was back in 2020, I think it was 2020, where he was like firing rounds at cops, basically a repeat offender. Parole board, or the judge, lets him out early, seemed pretty proud of that too. And then he does his time, parole board lets him out, and he's been running loose ever since. What could we do to stop? We need to figure this out. I don't want to live in a society where I have to be concerned around every corner I take for somebody that was let out of an institution that may or may not have a gun. And we have a lot of people. Mike Connolly is one of them. Democratic Socialists of America. He got on the other day in front of I forget what building he was in front of, and he's talking about the gun and not the person. I think that there's a huge separation between fact and fiction of what's happening here with criminal justice. You as governor, what would your plan be to, I know you're not, maybe it's not something that is fully threshed out yet, but what's your thoughts?
Well, we need a new governor and we need a new parole board. What happened on Memorial Drive is outrageous. A deranged madman with an automatic weapon fired over 50 rounds. Mike, he could have killed 10 people. The only reason he was stopped? There was a former Marine who was packing heat, legally I would add, had a weapon on him, and he was the one that was able to take the first shots at the guy and take him down. But here's the deal. Tyler Brown never, ever, ever should have been on the streets. Mm-hmm. In 2020, he fired 15 rounds at members of the Boston police. Mm-hmm. Rachel Rollins, by the way, of all people, not what I would consider a tough-on-crime prosecutor. Okay, Rachel Rollins wanted the guy to get 10 years. He ended up getting 5, and then Maura Healey's parole board let him out early. Maura Healey's parole board is failing the people of Massachusetts. There's 6 members of that board. 5 of them are appointed by the governor. Day one, when I am governor, we will fire every member of that board. They continue to release people onto our streets that shouldn't be on our streets.
That's the reality of what we're seeing here. And the truth to this is we're only going to see more. Unfortunately, we're only going to see more of it. It's only going to happen. It's inevitable that it's going to happen because, as you know, a lot of these people, when you're soft on crime, I've said this before, but what ends up happening is it creates this dynamic where these people feel that they're going to get that level of leniency either from the judge or from the parole board or from whoever it may be, and they will only, without the accountability, repeat crimes. They're going to repeat crimes. So, what they're trying to do now is they're trying to focus the attention on more strict gun laws. If they do something like that, in my opinion, you know more about this than me, if you try to disarm or make it the barrier to entry for a citizen to get a weapon, criminals could get weapons at any given time. Just stricter gun laws is not going to equate to less guns. It just means less guns for the public, for their safety.
The shooter on Memorial Drive did not have a legal gun.
Correct, exactly.
The former Marine who saved the day was legally carrying, and thank God he was there.
Yeah, if he wasn't there, if he wasn't there, if he didn't stop that guy, there could have been more casualties.
But for your listeners, these are the direct results of soft on crime judges, soft on crime prosecutors, and a soft on crime Governor Maura Healey, who has loaded that parole board with people who treat criminals like victims and victims like afterthoughts.
Yes.
The families of those victims of people that have been killed, they don't get a second chance. They don't get parole. They don't get leniency. And that board has now released over 60 convicted killers. These are people that were sentenced to life without parole, and every other Friday they're being released. The release rate is close to 75%.
That's part of the problem, where they're proud about how low the prison system is for inmates people being incarcerated, they're happy that these numbers are going down. But the weird thing, and I don't think I released the video yet, but the strange thing about it is that while the amount of criminals has gone down within the prison system, the costs keep going up. I don't understand how that happens, to be honest with you. How could costs keep rising, but meanwhile, the population inside of the prisons goes down? So there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, that need to be done, and we really need somebody in here. We're at war, okay? We are. This is a war. This goes beyond an ideological war. There is major problems here in Massachusetts, and you're seeing it play out in real time. And I really think that come this November, if something doesn't change, we're only going to see more of the same, and that's what I've been talking about. I'm kind of sick of it. I think a lot of people are sick of it, and the fact remains. Most of this state used to be Democrats. The majority of the state now is independents. So we have people here that probably are, a little bit more analytical, I would say, a little bit more middle of the road. And I feel like those are the people that are not necessarily being represented to their, to the highest ability, right? This administration is catering to the top end and the low end. Everybody in between, they don't care. Is that how you feel?
And I met a young woman who does not feel safe in Boston, okay? This was back in the fall. There was a Boston police cruiser that was burnt to the ground by a crazy mob of criminals. And this young woman who lives in that neighborhood, she goes to Northeastern. She told me she's afraid to walk to school at night. Her brother comes and picks her up. In that example, those two guys the next morning got out with $500 bail. It's outrageous.
Yep.
The prosecutors wanted $37,000. These guys got out with $500. Maura Healey and Michelle Wu have been big proponents of low bail limits or cashless bail.
Yep.
That's another thing I oppose. Cashless bail is costing taxpayers of this state $7 million a year, and it's releasing charged criminals onto the street the morning after or even the evening of an offense. We got to start with the basics. Let's start with keeping people safe, and that means ending things like cashless bail. It means putting judges in place that'll hold up the law and enforce high bail limits, and it means a parole board that will keep people in jail that are a danger to our society, as we saw 2 weeks ago Friday on Memorial Drive.
100%, which leads me into, I don't know if you saw my video about Tewksbury State Hospital. Have you seen those videos?
I haven't seen that one, but I know. Tell me about the story.
So Tewksbury State Hospital had more assaults in 1 year than the entire prison system inside of Massachusetts. This is a state-run hospital. They had 486, I believe, assaults in 1 year. I've had messages from the nurses that work there, administration that works there, that are literally scared to go to work. They can't even fill positions because that's how dangerous it is, because what's happening is that they are releasing people that are in prison, and they are trying to rehabilitate them in a state facility. These people are fearing for their lives, and what they did is, I think it was about the beginning of 2025, they removed all the any level of a baton or pepper spray gel or whatever it may be, something that you could, security has to protect not only the patients there, but also the employees there. They removed them. And they thought that was a good idea.
Well, that's the focus on protecting the rights of criminals.
Correct.
And putting the rights of criminals first versus the public versus employees and victims.
Yeah, I think that's something. Now, what they did recently, so actually it happened, I think, 14 days after I filmed that video, the initial video, they put, and you would know more about this than me, they put some of these things, like the pepper gel spray and whatever else, inside of safe security boxes on certain floors that I guess need an access code to get in. I mean, from the time that somebody goes and assaults somebody or whatever happens to the time security goes, opens up one of those boxes, gets what they need, right, and then tries to apprehend whatever is happening. We have this problem here in Massachusetts where they think every single person could be rehabilitated, and I just don't think that's necessarily true. I think that there's people out here that, again, if you're soft on this crime, they're only going to repeat the crimes 110%.
And we're seeing it happen every week. We are seeing people that have been released go out there and put the public in danger. By the way, my running mate, Sean Oliver, is a corrections officer. Talk to the corrections officers about what they face. Very similar. tons of restraints on what they can do, how they can act. And often with violent criminals, I mean, these guys are being attacked.
Right.
They need to be able to defend themselves. But with Healy and Wu at the helm, you see a lot of rules coming in that are protecting criminals versus protecting corrections officers or protecting nurses. As you said, it's a mentality. It's got to change. When I'm governor, day one, we'll change all of those things. A lot of those are state regulations.
Yes.
The parole board is a gubernatorially appointed board. The governor controls it, and the governor appoints judges.
Right.
I mean, look at some of these judges. Read the testimony of the judge who released Tyler Brown.
Yep.
She said, I'm taking a big chance on you.
Yep.
Don't disappoint us. She basically said, you're a pretty violent guy. You probably shouldn't be out, but we're going to roll the dice.
Yeah.
Those are not her dice to roll.
That's right.
That's us. It's our safety. You could have been on Memorial Drive
Correct.
that way. I could have been on Memorial Drive that day. That's not her call. He should be in jail, and judges like that have no place on the bench.
110%, which is, speaking of Michelle Wu, now I realize you're not running for mayor, but what's your thoughts on the congestion pricing that she's...
It'd be a complete disaster, Mike. I laid out a very detailed driving down cost plan last week to protect car owners and auto drivers in Massachusetts, because I feel under Wu and Healy that people that count on their cars for work or to get their kids to school are under assault. That plan suspends the gas tax and annual car inspections, no congestion pricing in Boston, no bridges or no tolls on the Cape Cod bridges, no mileage tax. Get ready for the mileage tax. It's coming, part of the Freedom to Move Act.
Yep.
And then the final thing I would block day one is the auto excise tax hike, which is part of the Municipal Empowerment Act. I assure you, if Maura Healey is reelected, you will see congestion pricing coming into Boston. You will see tolls on the Cape Cod bridges. You will see probably a tripling of the auto excise tax, and you will definitely see a mileage tax.
Well, the reason they want to increase the excise tax is that's a local options tax, right, for these towns. So for people that don't know, it's not only the excise tax, it's also meals tax, it's also accommodations, right? And what they've effectively tried to do is, at least in my eyes, is they've attempted to put the responsibility on these towns that may be underfunded or are behind on their budgets so that they could generate more money, which sounds good. But what it also does is creates a mechanism where it takes the responsibility off of the state to send more money. I just don't see that being a net positive for these towns. I think that taxing the residents more is not the way. I think that these towns should have at least a national average of aid coming into them. And I also think that that would help make them whole. We have, October of last year, we had 54 overrides in October. This year, about 2 weeks ago, there's already 74 overrides. I, back in October, said you're probably going to see close to 70 by that same time, which would be October of this year. We're already at 74.
And make no mistake, if you are in a community facing an override, that is a direct result of Maura Healey's priorities. We know how much revenue the state should return to cities now. We know the national averages. It's about 35% of tax receipts, roughly $40-45 billion.
Yeah.
What we are returning is around 28%. So if you look at Healey, there's a 7-point gap. To put that in perspective, that's somewhere between $2 and $3 billion a year that is being incinerated on Beacon Hill through a variety of programs. We can go through the list. Paul Craney was here recently. He can walk you through it. Enormous growth in all those welfare programs, yet that money's not getting back to cities and towns. For $2 to $3 billion, if you look at unrestricted local aid, which is police and fire, it's about $1 billion a year right now. You could triple it. And if you tripled it, Mike, I assure you, you would not have 70 overrides. A lot of these overrides are for a couple $1 million, generally around police and fire. You have school overrides, and there's Chapter 70 funding, and then roads is Chapter 90. But let's get back to the basics. Start from scratch. There is $2 to $3 billion being spent on Beacon Hill that should go back to cities and towns. Cities and towns know how to spend the money. They're closer to the people. They're generally pretty lean and mean as compared with state government. So I would tell you $1 in your community is going to go a lot farther than a buck on Beacon Hill.
Oh, 110%. I mean, I think I live in one of these towns that is looking for overrides. All you need to do, if anybody that's watching, if you have Facebook, just go on your local Facebook group and type in tax or override, and you have neighbors arguing, because I can make an argument for or against it, right? It depends on who you are, your age, if you're retired, if you're on a strict income, or you have kids in the school, whatever it may be. And the fact remains, nobody should have to deal with this. Nobody should have to be dealing with this in a state that collects so much taxes and only wants to tax us even further. They've created these programs where, you know, for instance, the millionaire tax, they make the promise of spending the money in one place, and then they do, but they're only backfilling what was already missing. So it's never new money. It's never going to what was intended. If it was supposed to be, you know, transportation or, you know, schools or whatever it may be, or infrastructure, it goes into that. But they've done it in a way where they've robbed Peter to pay Paul within the general budget, and then they're backfilling with money that should be new money for new things to make them whole.
There was a solemn promise made on that millionaire's tax, and the promise was the following: that money will be for new programs and capital investment in education and transportation. How long did it take for Beacon Hill to completely default on that promise, Mike? Two budget cycles.
Yep, exactly.
Here we are. Now, if you look at where that money's being spent, it is being spent to plug a bloated operating deficit. It's being spent to backfill statutorily required investments in education. It's not going towards new programs. So here's the deal. When I'm governor, if indeed we have moved away from the core premise that it's going to go to new projects, then I think we ought to think about more broadly what that money could be used for. $6 billion has been collected through that surtax in the last 2.5 years. If you gave $6 billion back to the 300 cities and towns in this state, you're talking about $15 to $20 million per community. If you gave half of it back, $10 to $15 million. You would not have a single override in the next decade if you returned that money. That's priorities, right? That is my priority, would be to start with local aid and build from there. Maura Healey's priorities is enormous growth in programs like SNAP, state Medicaid, the Mass Save program, the Home Base program, which is free apartment rental vouchers, which was designed for Massachusetts residents who are U.S. citizens. And it was designed for homeless veterans. I'm a veteran. I care a lot about veterans. Of course. That program has been converted into the next iteration of the Healey Hotels. It's a $100 million run rate program now, up from $20 million a year ago. Healey's putting thousands of migrant families into those programs. So that's one of many examples at the state level where spending is exploding. But you know who is not benefiting? Middle-class families and small businesses in Massachusetts.
100%. Speaking of businesses, there was somebody sent me an interview with somebody talking about businesses, and I'm probably going to cover it. But anyway, there's some people out there that think that we are, while we're losing businesses, we are gaining, this was the theory, even though we're losing business, we are gaining higher profitable or higher paying businesses, which I don't see. What business really, like what big business that you know of in the last 6 months has opened up in Massachusetts or even considered moving here? I mean, it's probably zero. I think that we need to figure out ways to incentivize businesses to move to Massachusetts. I don't know how the hell did we even get here?
Well, here's what you need. You need a new governor, okay? You need a businessman in the corner office. Maura Healey has never built a business. Michelle Wu has never built a business. I listened to an interview with Maura Healey's economic development chief this week. And you know what he said? He said they've looked at the numbers and Massachusetts actually is affordable.
Okay.
When compared with European cities.
No, okay.
Imagine that. So basically the argument is, hey, we're cheaper than Paris.
Yeah.
But Cape Cod potato chips did not move from Hyannis to Paris. They moved from Hyannis to North Carolina. There's over 40 manufacturing companies this year alone that have closed. They're not going to Paris. They're not going to London. They're going to North Carolina. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. And we know why they're leaving. They're leaving because energy costs are too high here. Taxes are too high. Most small businesses pay at the individual tax rate. So most small businesses are paying at that 9% rate. And then the third piece is just red tape and regulations. So we know why businesses are leaving. But Maura Healey Healey refuses to address any of those underlying drivers. She has said she does not believe that cutting the state income tax will make Massachusetts more affordable. That's ridiculous.
Well, I think that it comes with a caveat. What she probably means is if it gets reduced, she's going to tax us somewhere else by double, right? Like that's more than likely what they would do if they reduce that. They would just figure out a way to tax us more somewhere else.
Well, what she said is the reason she doesn't think it'll make the state more affordable is then we couldn't run all of these free programs. And she rattled off about 10 or 12 free programs. I have traveled all over this state for the last 14 months, meeting with middle-class families and businesses. Not once have middle-class families or small businesses told me what they need from the state are more freebies, more free programs. What they need is tax relief. What they need is cheaper electricity and gas bills. What they need is less red tape. That's what'll get us moving again. We got 100 people a day leaving Massachusetts. We've had 200,000 taxpayers leave over the past 4 years alone. We've got to get focused on becoming a growth state again and getting the private sector growing. Because if our private sector continues to shrink, we're going to wake up in a downward spiral of tax revenues and human capital.
100%. And when you really try to like quantify this down into something, you know, these businesses, when they're looking at states to move to, these businesses could move almost anywhere. And one of the primary factors, I would think, for a lot of even bigger businesses is, could my employees afford to live and work in the state that we move to? So if you are, you know, getting out of college or, you know, looking for a career, you can't even work and live in the same location in Massachusetts. That's why we have so many people come here, they get educated, and they leave. We can't retain any talent because the businesses can't afford to pay people a wage where they could actually live a life, start a family, buy a house, you know, and live, let's say, the American dream. It's just, it died here.
Well, young people need two things. They need a job and they need a place to live. Let's start with the job. One of the things happening in Massachusetts right now is it's becoming harder and harder for young people to find good jobs. The Wall Street Journal last week had Massachusetts, Boston, bottom 10% nationally in terms of the market for college graduates. Think about that. We are now bottom 10%. And why is it? It's because a lot of those big companies that people want to go work for, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Fidelity, to name some of the financial services players, guess where all their growth is? It's in North Carolina, it's in Florida, it's in Texas. So you got to realize that if big companies are deciding not to stay here, it's providing less opportunity for young people.
100%.
And that's financial services. If you look at energy-intensive industries, Eric Paley, Governor Healey's economic development chief, he recently said there's something called site selectors. Those are like consulting firms that companies work with to figure out where should I grow, where should I shrink. Sure. There's a real industry. And he said with site selectors, the number one question they now ask about Massachusetts, number one, is energy cost. And when you tell them we're 34, 35 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity compared to a national average of 10, he said that ends the conversation for most companies if energy is an input to them. So we got to start with keeping the companies here. If we keep companies here, we provide opportunities for young people. Yeah. Companies go, young people follow them.
We have to, speaking of energy, we need, I mean, people call me all the time in regards to their energy bills. And again, we have people that are debating whether they're going to either pay their energy bill or pay for their groceries. These are people that are either working in the Commonwealth or retired in the Commonwealth. Nobody should have to deal with this. It is crazy. And the problem when it comes to energy, this is the unfortunate reality. Even if we get a new governor, the activists and the nonprofits and the NGOs, there's just so much money behind this that it's really they're going to be outside the State House every single day. And they could very well do that. That's fine and dandy. But it's obvious that there needs to be some kind of change. And look, you and I both, I respect the environment, I respect these things, but I think that you need to be mindful of both the environment and people's pocketbooks.
Look, I have 3 young boys.
Yeah.
I care about clean water and clean air and a clean environment. The state's always done a great job on that.
Yes.
But we have to pursue those goals without bankrupting the state.
Correct.
And driving people from their homes. I was at the VFW in Dedham about a month ago. A woman came to one of my events. She's 80 years old, and she told me she retired from federal service. She was a postal worker, and she waited as long as she could to retire because she knew exactly what her fixed costs would be. So she retires in her 70s, and when she retired, she told me her electricity bill was $150 a month. And now, 7 years later, her electricity bill is $400 a month. That's an extra $250 a month. That's $3,000 a year. She's on a fixed pension. What she told me is basically, I'm going to have to sell my house and move because I have no way to offset that growth. So I see it all the time with elderly people.
Yes.
I see young families to whom they bought a place 6 or 7 years ago, and now their property tax and their electricity bills are equal to their mortgage. I mean, think about that. That your cost of utilities and local property taxes is now equaling your mortgage, and that's not what you signed up for. But we've got to take action. I'm a Marine. In the Marine Corps, you're always taught you got to have a bias for action as a leader. Take action. There are actions a governor could take right now. Maura Healey won't do any of them.
Yeah.
Maura Healey controls the Department of Public Utilities. She could pick up the phone today, call them, and tell them to begin the process of stripping all of those state-mandated fees out of your bill. I will do it. There are 12 fees on that bill. I'll strip every single one of them out. DeZoglio did an audit on the Mass Save program, which is $1.5 billion now. That was like a $100 million program not that long ago.
I know.
And what DeZoglio found is that working-class families are paying exorbitant fees and getting little or nothing in return. I think we got to strip all those fees out. And I'll tell you one last thing. There are plenty of Democrats in the legislature who agree with me. I mean, there was a Democrat bill in January that would have begun the process of stripping all those fees out, reduce the size of Mass Save, convert all those net zero 2030 and 2050 mandates into advisory opinions. Maura Healey wouldn't touch it.
Of
That's
course.
her own party. She wouldn't touch it. I would sign it.
Yeah, I think that, so there's this weird dynamic in Massachusetts where I think there is a whole bunch, and I may or may not talk to some, there's groups of Democrats that would like to say something, they would like to do something, and they feel beholden to the party, their stipends, the power, the money, whatever it is, right? And they don't want to, like, this is not a partisan issue, right? Energy is a bipartisan issue. This affects every single person in the entire state. And I think that most of these people would like to see a change. But then when we do have people like Maura Healey who are getting these mega donations from these, nonprofits and all this other stuff, she may not have created the problem, but she is carrying the torch for these people.
She's leaning into it.
Yes,
she is leaning into it.
Yes,
she shows no signs of pulling back.
Correct.
I mean, she wants to do more of all of these things. If you look across all those programs, if you look at the renewable heat standard, the Mass Save program, the renewable portfolio standards, in the aggregate, I mean, you're talking about $4.5 billion a year right now being spent by this state. And what's the result? The result, our costs have exploded. Maura Healey killed 2 natural gas pipelines when she was Attorney General. She was very proud of that.
I know.
We have the cheapest natural gas in the world. I'm going to point. It's like 300 miles west of us in the Marcellus Shale. If we had built those natural gas pipelines, families would be saving thousands of dollars. But Healey continues to lean into this climate agenda that's driving businesses and families out of Massachusetts.
It's a sad reality. And I think that when it comes down to energy, it's one of the biggest components to people leaving the state, including businesses leaving the state, as you said. And on top of that, you have the stretch codes within building. So, she wants to build more homes, but yet she's only made it less affordable to build the same house before she was elected. And one of the things, I have to send you this, one of the things that I took a look at, because I'm in real estate, I have access to the MLS, I could pull public records very easily, all this stuff. Most of the 100,000 homes that she claims have been built or have been permitted under her were actually Bakers. accomplishments.
That's right.
They're Baker's accomplishments. When you look at those numbers and you realize that Baker almost more than doubled what she has done, and then she's claiming, I wish Baker would just get on and say, look, you know, you may have built 100,000 or permitted 100,000, but I'm responsible for 75,000 of what's going on. Like, that's really what needs to happen, because you know, the general public, when they see a headline like that on like, you know, the Boston Globe, they take it as gospel, and it's not true. You're essentially gaslighting the public, similar to what happened with the audit situation with the Attorney General, Karen Spilka, Ron Mariano. They're just out here gaslighting people and trying to manipulate what the facts actually are.
Well, the truth on housing. Healy talks a great game about trying to generate more housing. The truth is, if you look at new permits issued since she took over, they're down 70%.
Correct.
The largest investor in real estate in Boston is National Realty Investment Trust. Fred Cairns is the guy who runs it. He recently exited the Boston market. You know what he said? It's got nothing to do with interest rates. They're high everywhere. They're high in Nashville, they're high in Dallas. We are exiting the Boston market because of a set of policies put in by Wu and Healy that have increased the cost to build by 30 to 40%. The first is zoning, increasing the required affordability units from 13 to 20. There's a whole set of projects that don't pencil out. The stretch code, ban gas hookups, required electrification, enormously expensive carbon reporting, having to design solar panels for the roof even if you don't want solar. All those things, all they do is add cost. And those are very concrete and very real. And what he has said is that with those rules and regulations in place, you've increased the cost 40%. No project pencils out. By the way, even in New York, Kathy Hochul, Democrat governor, they don't get much more liberal. You know what she just did? She just suspended for 5 years MEPA review for residential projects in New York. They're going to no longer have to undergo state environmental review, because what she found, which we all know, is all that does is add time, and it costs a lot of money.
Yes.
And the outcomes are no different. So she's suspended MEPA review.
Yeah.
So you want a governor that could start building again? Suspend the stretch code, suspend inclusionary zoning, suspend MEPA review. Give us 5 years. I assure you, you'd build 100,000 units that right now are ready to go. They're just not going to pencil out what those costs.
The other thing, too, is that when the gentleman that you spoke about, it's not even about, just so people understand, it's not only about the numbers making sense to stay here or to build new units here. It's also the financing. When these people bring their projects to a bank or an institution or whatever it may be, they look at the numbers, they're going, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. So you can't even get to finance some of these projects because it's not financeable in Massachusetts. So it's not only the builder saying, you know what, we're not going to make it. This is where people get it wrong. They think that the builder's not going to make enough money, and that could be a component to this. But the other component to this is that they can't get the financing because of the institutions and the banks don't want to lend them the money, because after they look at what it costs to build, it's not going to happen.
Capital is a coward. Okay, capital flows to wherever the best return is. And the reality in Massachusetts, with those regulations in place, capital is leaving the state. You know what will be the final nail in the coffin? Rent control.
Yes.
That's a really, really bad idea. And by the way, let me give Maura Healey some credit. This is one I agree with her on.
Yep.
She's come out against rent control. Good job, Governor. You're batting 100.
For now.
For now. But that's a terrible idea. Look at New York City.
Yeah.
I mean, New York City, there are thousands of empty apartments. You know why they're empty? Because the rent-controlled rent might be $1,100 a month, but the unit requires $200,000 of investment to come up to code. No one can live in it because it's not up to code. But you can't support an investment at $1,100 a month. So you know what? They sit empty. Thousands of empty apartments. That is the ghost of Christmas future in Massachusetts if we pass rent control.
The reason I think Healy has been opposed to rent control is because it's one of those issues where this is a theory. It's probably one of those things where she's not necessarily collecting money from the nonprofits and the NGOs and, you know, special interest or whatever it may be. So she's able to give an unfiltered opinion on it. And what I see happening is if she was reelected, she's going to support rent control. That's more than likely what's going to happen. 110%. I think that it's the optics of it. It's one of those, you know, somewhat of a big ticket issue for a lot of people. Obviously, renters don't necessarily understand the stipulations to what happens with rent control. All you have to do is look up Symphony Road in Fenway, what happened during the rent control era back in, what was that, the 80s or something like that, where they were burning down buildings, collecting the insurance money. People died. It's a really sad reality. And the more, you know what I find funny? The people in Massachusetts are so desensitized from what, like, obviously we aren't, but a lot of people are so desensitized from what's happening that when, let's say, a national news picks up one of the stories, everybody in the rest of the country is like, what is happening in Massachusetts? Like, what is going on? And we're just sitting back like, yeah, this is just a Tuesday. You know what I mean? This is just a Tuesday.
Although I'll tell you what, it's not just Republicans.
No, it's not.
I mean, I had a Democrat state rep, retired, of course, show up at my event last night.
Yep.
And he was just telling me about how fed up he is with the direction of things in Massachusetts. Endless increases in the cost of electric and gas bills, which, by the way, all state fees. The fact that we got a governor that's fighting the proposal to reduce taxes. So when I'm out there, I'm out there all the time.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of Democrats and it's a lot of independents who feel completely abandoned.
Yes.
Independents are not registered as Democrats for a reason.
Correct.
Right? They want to have some choices, and I think they look at the direction of the state. They see people leaving. They see young people leaving. They see families, young families, deciding which bill they can't pay this month. They see elderly people getting driven from their homes by property tax hikes, and they know we can do better. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that Massachusetts was the fastest growing state in the entire Northeast. You go back to that stretch, 2010 to 2020, number one in job growth, number one in entrepreneurship. People were moving here. Businesses were moving here. I'm an optimist. I've spent my whole life building companies in the private sector, small companies, helping them build, helping them grow. We know what it takes to get Massachusetts back on track, to get Massachusetts growing again. But I tell you what, it starts with new leadership. Because with Healy at the helm at the state and Wu at the helm in Boston, every single decision being made, every policy is having the wrong effect. It's continuing to raise costs and drive people out.
The thing is, every single talking point and every single thing that they do is pushed through a political lens, right? So every single step that they take, they're considering this is my opinion, but I think that, look at it this way, every single policy, every single mandate, every single thing that they've done thus far is a complete, very far left. These are very far left things that they're trying to implement. They're, very socialism type programs, right? So the reality here is, like, the people in Massachusetts, maybe there are some supporters of that, but if there were, I think you would see more registered Democrats that are on board with that. You could take my channel, for example. My channel has a mix of Republicans, Democrats, and independents, because what we talk about here are these are bipartisan issues. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, this is not, it should be smaller government. How many people has Healy hired in different groups and different, they've created all of these fictitious jobs that shouldn't even exist. So she grew the government. Maybe you know how much.
She's added over $1.2 billion of state payroll.
There you go. Exactly.
State spending in the aggregate, $65 billion this year, was about $48 billion in 2022. And I would ask you, is state government $17 billion better than it was? I mean, are the roads paved with gold? No. Are the schools getting better? No. Are local communities getting the money they need? No. So you can see with her priorities, this enormous spending growth. What do we have to show for it? That's what I always hear from people.
Yes.
Because I think in this state, independent voters are fiscally conservative and socially fairly moderate.
Yeah.
And they say, like, I actually don't mind paying tax.
Sure.
But is the state doing a good job with it? And
Correct.
when 72% of them vote for the audit, and we have a governor that refuses to stand up and drive that audit, they say, what are they hiding?
Correct.
What are they hiding? Where is all that money going?
Correct. And she has a lot of, look at it this way. She was Attorney General. So if she were to say something, not that I want to focus on the audit, but if she were to do something, if she didn't, I don't believe she wrote an amicus brief. If she were to do something, it would hold some weight because she was an Attorney General. She understands these things. Don't let her, don't think that she doesn't, because she does. And she had every opportunity to support it, not just, in talking points, but in practice, and she failed. So what does that go to show you? And you're right, there's a lot of people here. Like, look, nobody is going to argue with the fact that if you're paying high taxes, but your quality of life, education, let's say healthcare, safety, all of these things add up, right? people would be, in my opinion, to some extent in support of paying a higher tax. But when you're paying higher taxes and then you're getting they're implementing programs to tax you even more, and you're not getting anything, it's a terrible investment. You're not getting anything in return.
And you know what? People know it.
And people know it. People know it.
Healy will look you in the eye and tell you that there's no waste and abuse in government. Never let anyone tell you you can't control waste and abuse in government. 11 years ago, when the MBTA imploded, massive fiscal crisis, $300 million deficit. The governor at that time didn't call a politician. He called me. I was a turnaround specialist. I had a background in financial turnarounds. And when I stepped into the T, $300 million deficit, expenses growing 3 times the rate of revenues. What I was told was you'll never find any opportunities to save money here. It's very well run. It's just all about we just need more money. First week I was there, we took a look at the Verizon wireless cell phone bill. I mean, we were paying for 3,000 phones, and I asked, when was the last time we did an audit in the cell phone bill? And the answer was, of course, never looked at it, never thought about it. 1,000 of those phones hadn't been used, seen, or heard from in years. That was the first $1 million we saved. We had a $200,000 a day overtime bill. And I asked, who manages overtime? How are we tracking it? How do we know what people are doing in overtime? And the answer was, no one manages it. Employees are signing their own timesheets. We have no technology that tracks whether people are swiping in or swiping out. It's completely unmanaged. We put basic processes in place. Swipe in, swipe out. Supervisors sign your timesheets. The overtime bill dropped by half in about 8 weeks. So everywhere we looked in that organization, what you found was enormous spending that was unmanaged, and basically no one was looking at it. We found millions of dollars in waste and abuse in only 2 years. DeZoglio, to her credit, every time she does an audit, she finds the same thing.
Exactly.
I mean, the migrant transportation audit of Mercedes Cab,
Yes.
$6.8 million no-bid contract to a black car company, paying $220 to move people 100 feet across parking lots. And when I read that audit, all I could think of was, it reminds me of what I found at the T. And what DeZoglio found in that audit when she asked the state, why'd you pay $300,000 in late fees and cancellation fees? The contract does not stipulate that. The state procurement folks said, no one from the state ever reviewed a single invoice. Just pay the bills. So I'm telling you, when it comes to cutting waste and abuse out of government, I'm the only candidate in this race who's done it. I have audited a state agency. I know how to do it. You got to go line by line, department by department, head by head, contract by contract. State government's now a $65 billion enterprise. You got to audit SNAP. You got to audit Mass Health. You got to audit the home base program. You got to go through every single one of those. Look at, are the people in the program eligible? Are we tracking the vendors, and the payments? None of that is happening right now in state government. But Healy would tell you, there's really no way to run the state without continuing to grow a $65 billion budget at 5% a year.
Yeah, look at it this way. What's the budget going to be in the next? If she were to get elected, the budget's going to be close to $100 billion.
You bet it will be. And by the way, this year, it's, the core spending is growing at twice the rate of core revenues.
Yeah.
Doug Howgate from Mass Taxpayers, who's an independent fiscal watchdog, I mean, you look at his analysis, he would tell you that she still has a structural gap of close to $3 billion, which she's using the millionaire's tax, and she's changing the pension funding schedule, and she's raiding some of the education trust funds with one-time solutions. But the core issue is that spending growth is growing at twice the rate of revenue. That is a story that always ends badly.
Like I said, we're at war. This is legitimately a war. What's funny? Like with the MBTA, I could see how this happens because, we have a big real estate group, and what I see happen oftentimes in different industries, almost any industry, is like the people that work there, whether they be administrative, whether they even be on the leadership team, is like, it's so much easier to spend more money to a point and just kind of be naive and look the other way than it is to actually dig in and see where, you're wasting money. Because when you do that, and when you hire somebody to do that, what ends up happening is the people that are in leadership, it's a bad look on them, because these are things that perhaps they should have done that they didn't do. But most people, even in leadership, they go do their job, they do what they have to do, they go home, and that's it, right?
But you're a business guy. I'm a business guy. In business, you got to flex up, you got to flex down.
Yeah.
You know, you need to be able to increase spending when you can afford it and reduce spending. And state
Correct.
government's like a zip tie. It
Yeah.
only goes one direction. It grows. And what you find is that often in these agencies, it's just, you know, state spending's growing 7, 8, 9% every year, but no one is ever getting back to the basics.
Right.
Do we have the right set of people? When was the last time we rebid some of these contracts? I remember another example, I'll tell you, when I got to the T, this is revenue side, not cost side. We had 100 stations, incredible real estate. Think about how many people are going through Park Street and Harvard Square. And we had really no digital advertising business there. There'd literally be some like faded, poster for like the Jersey Boys show that came through like 3 years ago. So I was like, why are we not monetizing all that space? And the answer was, oh, well, we had a contract that sort of like expired years ago and just no one ever followed up on it. So we went out, we did an RFP, we brought a national firm in, and we gave them the right to use that space. We got a big revenue cut on it. That's a $100 million business now.
Yeah.
But it takes some creativity. It takes the mindset of a businessman and the perspective of an outsider.
Yeah.
Because generally, the folks that are in these agencies are doing the same thing they've always been doing. There's
Correct.
not that creativity you get from a business background. But the good news is there's huge potential. And I assure you, when I am governor, on day one, we'll bring people in from the business world that understand how to audit agencies. We'll find enormous opportunities to save money. And you might find some revenue opportunities, like we did with digital advertising.
No, here's a question for you. So down at the Cape, the Sagamore, and what's the other bridge? Bourne Bridge?
Bourne Bridge, yeah.
Both bridges are getting replaced, correct?
That's correct.
The houses around the Sagamore Bridge are the ones getting taken by eminent domain, correct?
I think there's a variety of homes being taken by eminent domain, maybe around both. I think the first ones taken were the Bourne Bridge, actually, I believe.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Okay. Did that already happen?
I think some of it's already happened. I mean, the key thing is you got to treat people fairly. You got to treat people fairly. You got to get them fair market price.
That's where I'm heading with this. Did they get fair market price? Do they know if they got fair market price? Like,
usually the way this works is there's an initial offer made.
Yes.
And often the parties disagree, and eventually it's adjudicated. So what I think is most important there is you give people, a fair price, a good market price. I don't know exactly where they stand in that process.
Gotcha.
But I do think it's important that we build those bridges. You know what else is important?
Yeah.
That we don't put tolls on them.
Yeah.
Because get ready. I mean, Maura Healey gets reelected. You're going to see tolls on the bridges. You're going to see a mileage tax. The Freedom to Move Act is moving through the legislature. What a nice sounding name, by the way.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's right on
didn't they rename that a couple times or something? Yeah.
It's right out of George Orwell, 1984,
yeah,
right?
It is. I think I said that before. I'm like, they keep renaming it to try to like manipulate the wording so that it sounds acceptable.
It's called doublespeak. It's you name something the opposite of what it is.
Yeah.
So the Freedom to Move Act is the opposite of the Freedom to Move Act. What that bill would do is set up a working group. It always starts with a working group and a pilot to begin to track the miles you drive and put a system in place to tax you on miles driven. It's coming. They're going to start with EVs, with the argument being that EVs aren't paying the gas tax, but I assure you the next one will be a mileage tax. So you're going to see a mileage tax. You're going to see that auto excise tax hike. By the way, another beautiful sounding name. The Municipal Empowerment Act.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it should be called the Watch Your Wallet Act.
Yeah.
Because that's going to triple your auto excise tax. I think all those things will come through if Healy is reelected.
110%. They're all, that's the thing. When you think about it, the size of government, here's the reality for people. The size of government will get bigger. Your towns are going to get less money. There's going to be more towns looking for overrides. You're going to get taxed more within the towns that you live. It is going to be, imagine this is what I said before with Healy. If it's not that even as if she maintained status quo. It would have been better if there was nobody there because it's only gone down. You know what I'm saying? Like if we maintained even Charlie Baker at the time and everything was just status quo, it would still not be great, but it only got worse under Healy.
Well, look at the scorecard. We are now 50th out of 50. We are dead last in private sector job growth. It's a stunning chart when you look at it.
Yes.
That Massachusetts has lost almost 30,000 private sector jobs since January of 2023 when Healy came in. Over that period, we should have added about 100 to 150,000. Baker added about 230,000 over 8 years. But to put it in perspective, when your private sector is getting smaller and you have less people working here, that missing 150,000 people, that's sales tax revenue, that's
Correct.
meals tax revenue, that's income tax revenue. So when you look at the scoreboard for Healy, we are at the bottom on private sector job growth. We are at the bottom on opportunities for recent college graduates to find jobs. We are at the top of all the lists you don't want to be at the top of. The U-Haul one-way outbound list.
Yes, yes,
Which
yes.
means I'm leaving and I'm not coming back.
Yep.
The electricity prices. And, look, I always remind people it's because of choices that have been made, okay? It doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to have the highest electricity rates in the country. We don't have to be last in jobs. Those were choices made. They're bad public policy decisions. With a new governor, we could turn those things around.
So what would you do in your first 100 days?
When
What
I'm
would be
governor,
your focus?
day one, eliminate all of those state mandated fees from electric and gas bills. Day one, sign the rollback of the income tax from 5% to 4%. Day one, suspend the gas tax, end the tax on tips, and the tax on overtime. Those are immediate steps we can take to make Massachusetts more affordable. I would also give homeless veterans priority for programs like the home base program and the right to shelter law, because I believe that those are programs that our homeless veterans should be at the top of the list, not the bottom of the list. And I would restrict eligibility for all of those state welfare programs to Massachusetts residents who are U.S. citizens, okay? These are immediate steps we can take to get this state growing again. And the other thing I would do is I would block a whole bunch of bad ideas that aren't in yet, like the mileage tax, like the auto excise tax hike, like the tolls, like congestion pricing. Block all those things. And then I would kick off the audit of the state legislature. The legislature is about a $90 million operation. You got to audit it. But the big money in state government is in the executive branch. Maura Healey does not have to ask anyone's permission to be a leader there. When I'm governor, I could audit every part of the executive branch without asking anyone's permission.
Right.
And I would do it line by line, department by department, contract by contract. I'm the only candidate in this race who's ever audited a state agency. I know how to do it. And the combination of those immediate steps to reduce the cost of living, improve affordability, cut taxes, and then get spending under control. If we do those things, we will become a state very quickly in which people stop leaving, in which businesses stop leaving, in which state starts to grow within its means, and we'll be back. I mean, Massachusetts can be back.
It can be. It's going to take time, because when you figure let's talk about, or just briefly, like the business side and the people side. Like if you're at a deficit, and you essentially, it's going to take time to get back to even a break-even point. So it's going to, like, things won't heal, in a year. It's going to take a couple years to get these people and retain talent and retain businesses, open up new businesses for them to thrive. But I mean, I hope people realize that, like, since we are in the gutter, this isn't not only do we have to replace what we lost, but we have to build on top of what we gain, right, in order to make it even better.
Well, I think and people and businesses want to be on a winning team.
Yeah, of course.
They want to see which direction you're headed. What I always tell people is help is on the way. You're not going to get it all done in one day. But if you have a governor who's an entrepreneur and a businessman that understands how to get companies growing again, understands how to control spending, and we reset the trajectory of the state, this is a great state. We got the smartest people in the country. We got the Cape. We got the Berkshires. We have an amazing defense technology sector. We got the hospitals. So we have the assets here. We just need different policies. And I think if you had a governor that woke up every morning like I would and went to bed every night thinking about how to improve the business climate, get companies to stay here, get young people to stay here, which means they need jobs, and then get spending under control, I think you very quickly would find businesses and individuals making different decisions. Right now, people are fleeing the state. I mean, there was a Globe poll at Thanksgiving of 1,000 respondents in which 40% of the respondents, 40, indicated they were actively thinking about leaving the state.
I saw that.
That is voters or people sort of voting with their feet, right? Those are people that just feel like the direction is headed in the wrong way. I know with new leadership, you could turn that around.
100%. I talk to people all the time. I mean, I'm 41 years old, so a lot of the clients that I represent, we have these conversations. Like, Mike, should we buy a house here, or we're thinking about picking up a job somewhere else? Like, it's sad. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's one thing to talk to the people that are affected by it. You know what I mean? Because that gives you a different perspective on what's actually happening. It's easy for somebody to look at a statistic or a poll or something like that and say, oh yeah, things are bad. But then you take it a step further. And if you're actually dealing with a lot of these people, whether personally or in a business aspect, it's sad to see it's really sad to see what happened, because like you said, Massachusetts does have a lot to offer. It's just, unfortunately, other states are just outperforming us. How are we going to compete with other states when the cost of living is so high? The taxes are only getting worse. Everything, every little aspect, whether it be business, energy, construction, like everything is so bad, and nobody wants to talk about it. Like, you figure Healy would get up there, like when she did her State of the Commonwealth address, like instead of gaslighting everybody, all they have to do is be honest, right? Just say, hey, I understand we had all she said, what does she say? What's her catchphrase? We have more work to do. How much?
She says, proud of the record so far.
Proud of the record, but we have more work to do. When is the work going to get done?
Yeah.
When is the work going to get done, really? It's insane to me.
I'll also tell you this. This state has always worked better with balance.
Of course.
Having a Republican business-oriented governor to balance that legislature is a good thing.
Yes.
And this state's worked pretty well over the past 30 years when we had two teams on the field. When you have one team on the field, not good. And we are now living through it.
It's not good. I talk about that all the time. Everybody's in there patting each other on the backs. They don't even read the damn bills. They don't know what the hell is going on. They just know who was the authors, the co-authors, and all they do is agree with everybody. How are you going to get, like, look at it this way. You know yourself in business, the biggest component to actually growing a business is getting criticism of the decisions that you're going to make. You need people on the other, and some people don't like the criticism. Mm-hmm. I love criticism because what it does is some people are scared of it. But if you have somebody that's looking forward to getting criticized on point A or point B or X, Y, or Z, it leads to critical thinking, and critical thinking leads to critical outcomes. And those critical outcomes could be critical for the people that you represent. That's what needs to happen. Every single person inside of Massachusetts needs to understand. That's why I've been doing what I'm doing. They need to understand what is going on, because unfortunately, every single person inside of the legislature, every single person, all of these Democrat politicians, their message is only amplified by the legacy media here. So of course they're not going to talk about the nitty-gritty parts of the Mass Save program. Yeah, maybe they'll touch on it a little bit, but not to the point where it's criticizing the outcome, right? Maybe they criticize the program, but what's more important than the program itself is the outcome and the people affected by these outcomes. And I think that more and more people are waking up to the fact that, hey, I don't think I could afford to live here. How are my kids going to afford to live here? We're going to be out of here soon. And I don't think people want to live in that kind of reality. And then on top of it, if the streets are less safe, taxes are rising, energy costs are up, something needs to be done, and it needs to be done yesterday. It's going to take a long time to get this. But
leadership means being bold. And I will tell you, if you're a leader and you have good ideas, you can get people to follow you. When Bill Weld became governor in 1990, everyone said, oh, you'll never get anything done. Yeah. You have a Democrat legislature, Democrat House, and he cut taxes 41 times in his first year.
Yeah.
How did he do it? He had good ideas. People recognized there was a problem. He led. So I would tell you, with a business-oriented Republican governor in the corner office, mm-hmm. I think there's a lot that we can get done. But it starts with, you got to have the right ideas. And right now, Maura Healey is just basically, proposing more of the same.
That's
more
all it
spending,
is.
More mandates, more taxes, higher energy costs. I mean, she hasn't proposed a single policy that would move the needle on any of those things. When I'm governor, I think I could move the needle on all of those things.
I think so too. I think it needs to come from obviously the cutting is good, income tax and all of these things. But on top of that, the audit, I think, is really going to be key here, because before we, let's say, get more money back into the pockets of the taxpayers or the ratepayers for energy, we need to understand the fact that if the state government maybe collecting less money because we're giving more money back to either the towns or the taxpayers. We need to figure out ways in order to make cuts within certain programs themselves, right?
And I would argue it might not even be cuts. I mean, DiZoglio did an audit. She does every quarter a mass health audit, quarterly. The most recent one she did found a 100% increase in fraud.
Yeah.
She pulled 1,100 files, and 11% of them, 1 out of 10, was a fraudulent payment. 1 out of 10. This is a tiny little audit on a $25 billion program, and she immediately identified millions of dollars of fraud and waste. But again, what you find is when you don't look for fraud and waste, you won't find it. If you look for it, you will find it. So in every time she does one of these, you're finding big bucks. If we did that across all of these enormous state programs, I think what you would very quickly find is an error rate that's 8 to 10%. I mean, that's tens of millions, maybe even billions of dollars. Those are important programs, and they exist to support the most vulnerable people among us, young mothers with kids, elderly that can't care for themselves, homeless veterans. We got to protect those programs.
Correct.
But when you see an error rate of 11%, and by the way, the SNAP program looks very similar. Every time Leah Foley, the U.S. attorney, does an audit on the SNAP program, she's done 5 of them now, millions of dollars of fraud. I mean, every single time she opens the drawer and looks, she finds it. So I think you got to start with the hard-hitting audit to eliminate fraud and waste, and then let's see where we are. And my prediction as I sit here today, Mike, is I'll have plenty of money to double the $1 billion local aid account.
That's good. That's a big concern of mine.
The first $1 billion I find is going right back to cities and towns.
Okay, Brian, it's been a pleasure. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just tell all your listeners to make sure to vote on September 1st. The primary is the Tuesday before Labor Day. That can be a busy week for people. Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're on the beach, maybe your kids go back to school. So request an absentee ballot. If you're not going to be around, those are available now. You can apply. If you're an independent voter, you can vote in this primary. If you're a Republican, you can vote in this primary. But let's get everyone out and vote. You know, it's critical. It's a critical election, and the primary is the first step.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for coming on again.
Thank you, Mike. Great to see you.
Yep.
That was fun.
Awesome. Good job.
Yeah, it was fun.
Good job.